And we are live. And Carl, welcome to the podcast. And thank you very much for agreeing to come on and speak about your experiences in your life. And I'm looking forward to this next, however long it may be. For those that obviously don't know you and don't know your background and what this is about, do you want to tell the people that are listening, a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm 43 years of age. I live in South Wales. And yeah, I attempt to run ultramarathons. So I've had a few little sort of I've had a lot of adversity against me, and we just try and keep showing up. So yeah, I try and raise a lot of awareness for mental health and stuff also, and yeah.
So, I mean, it is amazing to me because obviously we've spoke off camera and we've sort of been conversing over the past that's probably been 3-4 weeks now, and I know a little bit more about your story, and we're going to get into it. And I think it obviously now speaking face to face, and it's amazing how it's not you're not blasé about it, but it's just almost like matter of fact, if that makes sense. That you've been through adversity, and the adversity from my perspective that you've been through is more than what probably 90% of people will go through in their lifetime. That sort of sit in their bubble, and yeah, I suppose it's that sort of it's inspirational, and I've sort of really been looking forward to this conversation with you based on the fact that obviously what I know you've been through, and I'm pretty certain every single person that will be listening to this has known somebody or has a family member that has been through something similar to what you yourself have been through. Whichever factor that is, because when I was speaking, when we were going through the questionnaire and stuff and getting to know one another, it was almost like you're Leonardo DiCaprio out of The Revenant. It was just what one thing after a fucking another that just kept on happening, and the fact that you still yeah, and the fact that you're still going forward is awesome. So, I mean, going back all the way before the adversity, and as you as a sort of growing up, would you say that sport was sort of a massive thing for you?
No. So as a
Right.
youngster, I was like brought up on a council estate. So yeah, just typical sort of council estate sort of youngster. I was overweight. Smoked a lot of cannabis, and yeah, to smoke cigarettes and stuff.
Wow.
And yeah, so it was just sort of that was my sort of that was my childhood up until I was around about 15, 16, and then I moved away I didn't move too far away, but I went to live with my grandma. And yeah, I think so. So nothing really. I didn't really become sporty or active until sort of early 30s, something like that. So yeah, that's when I started boxing.
Right. Okay. So you went through that so from fighting to ultra marathon running. So what is that? Did you get sort of high up in boxing, or was it just like something that
No, so I was
you
just
enjoyed?
I was just a basic gym sparer. So the only reason I went to the boxing gym was probably because I was such an anxious person. I was a very nervous person, and because I was the bigger child, because I was the bigger kid growing up, I was always sort of picked on and bullied and stuff, and name
Yeah.
called and stuff. So yeah, I just thought I couldn't go through the rest of my life being that anxious, scared person. So yeah, that's when I decided to start going to the boxing gym. So.
Yeah, I must admit, I've tried it. I have tried it. I just didn't like getting punched in the face. That was I like the training. The training was fun.
Yeah.
And I still me and my missus, when we go to the gym, I get on the heavy bag, and it's fitness wise, it's awesome. And one of my good friends that'll be coming on the podcast, Ollie, he's like big into kickboxing, loves it. And he's him and Wayne are always like, "Oh, why don't you come? Why don't you come down?" And it's just, I'll do the fitness, but when it gets to the sparring, I'll bow out. I just, it's too pretty to ruin. I don't want to be punched in the nose over and over. It was bad enough getting a hockey ball recently that smashed my nose to pieces. So yeah, I mean, so I know what you've sort of been through, and in terms of the traumatic brain injury, how did that come about initially? Because that was one of the first major pieces of adversity that you ended up sort of
Yeah,
going
so
through.
like I say, I was sparring. Yes, but I never had any boxing. Yeah, I never had any amateur bouts. But I was always sparring like a lot of the boys who were having amateur bouts, and yeah, so I was just like, but again, I think I was never educated or clued up on concussions because it was just like I'd go up the gym, I'd spar on a Monday, I'd go home, probably vomit the following day, have a bad leg, go back up on a Wednesday, spar again, and then be sick again on a Thursday or be sick, have a headache, and then it was just all accumulation. And then it was one day I got caught with a shock, and it was just like electric shock going down through my spine. And but I carried on sparring, and then it was just like the following day, I think it was, or a couple of days after, I just literally like lost my ability to speak, I lost my ability to walk, I got really angry and stuff. It was awful. I was just like, I was just vomiting, feeling the worst thing I'd ever experienced.
Wow, that must have been fucking scary.
Yeah, because and again, I think the way I explained the pain in my head, it felt like my brain was trying to escape from my eyes. So it was like the pressure on my eyes. It felt like my brain was trying to pop out of my eyes. It felt like it was too big for my skull. And
Wow.
um, and the NHS in the UK not really clued up on concussions. So a lot of like if you look at like Americans are very clued up on concussions because of the
Yeah,
NFL and all that stuff. Whereas
it
in
was a
the
ma-
UK,
I,
like
I I lived over there, and that was one of the massive. Like I coached. I hate the word soccer, but I coached football over there, and that was one of the biggest things was concussion. Heading the ball. You didn't head the. They were one of the first countries to stop children heading the ball, um, based on the fact that could be seen to be contributing towards longer term concussion, dementia, so on and so forth. And I agree. I don't think there's that much of an emphasis as there should be over here. Um, like for instance, playing hockey as I do. Well, it's a bit different because you know when that hits you. You know when that ball hits your head because you probably wake up on the floor. Um, but it's such a dangerous, and we've seen it just recently, haven't we? Really, in Premier League football and stuff, that a head injury is sort of taken seriously. So if somebody's got a knock to the head, they never used to stop the game. They could be playing on for 5 minutes, and whereas now, and they've got to do the concussion checks on the side of the pitch. So who was it? Who was it yourself that sort of um, almost self-treated that, or was you said you live with your grandparents? Was that
no,
the
so
person
at
that?
that age, so that time, I think I was around about sort of yeah, I was like 34, 35, around about that time, I think. So I was obviously I'd had a child as well, so I was living with my child in a son and my son's mother, and they had their own home and stuff, and yeah, he was just like, literally, I suppose just everything just fell apart. Like, I turned really violent. I was like smashing things up. I was like, idiot, Jesus rewired my brain. He just could eat. I didn't have any patience for nothing. So I had to move out to the home because it was like, we got to the stage where I was like, that really could have been dangerous. But there's nothing that I'm proud of. But it was the worst place I've ever been in my life. And yeah, it was scary because I didn't recognize myself neither. And yeah, I lost a short-term memory. And like I say, I lost my ability to walk at one point. yeah, it was just like, and I was going back and forth hospitals, vomiting, and really just saying, go home and rest and all of that. And it wasn't simple as that because there was a lot of sort of mental issues going on as well. So, which could have been from the damage that the runs and stuff. So,
So what was the prognosis that you were originally given then?
so they basically said that I had a concussion, which could have been possibly a post-concussion syndrome, which when obviously I was still vomiting like a year later, then they put it down to post-concussion syndrome because post-concussion syndrome is like concussion symptoms which last up to a couple of years.
Right.
So it's like having a concussion every day.
Wow.
So
So
yeah.
but they couldn't really tell you one how long that would last, and what was it doing? Was it getting worse? And was it getting worse because you were carrying on doing the boxing and stuff? Or
No, well, I stopped boxing because, like I said, I just literally had no, like, I was just lived with constant headaches because, again, my brain felt like it was too big for my skull. So it was just like the headaches that I was experiencing, and like I said, I was just constantly vomiting. So it was just, I couldn't do anything. I was just bedbound. Like, well, the light would affect my eyes really bad. So I couldn't look at screens. I couldn't look at daylight and stuff. So I was just literally, I couldn't do anything. And so yeah, it was quite a scary place at the time.
so obviously coming from that and it being um you being in that position where it's hard to imagine. I've been through severe injuries, not necessarily brain injuries or anything along those lines, where I mean, it's my knees. My knees are crisp packets. They're absolutely useless. They crunch, they crinkle. They've got no strength in them whatsoever. So I know when I've had my bad knee injury on my left when I was 19 years old, it took me a long time to get back running and sport. And I've always been sort of sporty from being very young. Um, Psychologically, for me, that was really difficult, to the fact that you're in essence bedridden. You can't run, you can't do the things that you want to do or even that your friends are doing, and you're kind of stuck there. So it has that, aside from the physical element, it has that psychological aspect on it. How is that different with a brain injury? Because like you said, it's not yourself. You're almost not yourself.
Yeah, I wasn't. I was just like, and again, because I was losing short-term memory, which was just like horrific. It was just like I kept forgetting things so much. Again, the pain was just horrific. And then over time, like my walking got better and stuff, and then I could start driving again, and but yeah, I just wanted to end it, and again, I don't know if you've seen this program called Concussions with Will Smith, which is like out in America and stuff, and so yeah, that was again, I watched that and it like makes me really emotional because again, you see people taking their own lives and like I attempted to take my own life as well because I couldn't stick the pain. I couldn't stick. Yeah, I just couldn't stick any of it. I didn't recognize who I was and stuff. And yeah, I just wanted to tap out and yeah, it was like awful.
And in I think most people will have known somebody or been around somebody or been affected by somebody that's taken their own life, and I thank God that you weren't successful in that aspect. And uh, you know me being open and honest, I have been in places where I've been at the bottom of the shop. I've been as low as you could possibly go physically, and I think most people would sort of be lying if they didn't admit to ruminating about ending it and thinking about sort of, this is, I can't be bothered anymore. Stop the world. I want to get off. Everybody has that feeling at some point. Um, and even though I've gone through months of having them thoughts and thinking that way, I suppose almost always in the back of my head, it's been, yeah, but I'm not going to do that. And then obviously when, I've got my daughter, it's never been an option because it's one of those where I can't get to that point. But then because you're at that point and people have ended their own life, that it goes deeper, which is really, really frightening to me because I
Yeah,
know
and
how low I was.
that was the scariest thing. Was like I didn't know who I was. I didn't understand who I was. I didn't have like yeah. It was just I was just looking for that way out to stop the pain, to stop just to stop how I was feeling, how I was thinking. It was just like honestly, it was the word. And like I say, because I was turning obviously professionals as well, like obviously doctors and nobody could give me answers on the concussion. So it was just like I just felt lost, and I just thought I can't do this.
Yeah. So
Mm,
how did I mean, obviously subsequent to you trying to end it all and getting a way out, and obviously, like we've said, clearly it's not been successful. What from that point, what changed from that point? This episode is sponsored by the Pendle Mushroom Company, pioneers in the world of functional fungi. They grow, harvest and dual extract every mushroom right here in the UK, from lion's mane to cordyceps, for maximum purity, potency and sustainability. Whether you're looking to boost focus, energy or overall well-being, their tinctures are the real deal. No imported powders, no fillers, just science-backed mushrooms done right. And because you're part of the Cut the Shit community, you can get 10% off all tinctures with the code CTS10 at pendlemushroomco.com. That's CTS10 for 10% off. Unlock the power of nature with the Pendle Mushroom Company. The whole thing with sort of, not beating around the bush, the word suicide, it's kind of a taboo and a buzzword, really, in society still. And I've had an experience where one of my dad's very close friends, I called him Uncle. He committed suicide. Always life and soul of the party. His nickname was Crasher through the old motorbike, sort of clubs. And he was, whenever I met him, or saw him out, he was always happy, smiling, joking, always the crazy, fun one. And the battle, obviously, he was going through behind the scenes, nobody would have known. And I think it's difficult to comprehend. Like I've mentioned previously, I've been at that point where I know that there's something below this, of where you can't see a way out. Therefore, obviously, that's the end result of taking your own life. And you've obviously tried to do that, and then to sort of try and build from that. And you're mentioning about sort of seeing motivational speakers, like God, everybody's got to love Goggins.
yeah, he was the one. Do you know me? He was the main one. And I think that do you know that guy gets a lot of stick, but I think that guy literally saved so many lives, like because
100%. I
yeah,
mean, if at the end of the day, you've got people out there spreading hate left, right, and center, and not trying to motivate people, and telling people they're useless and whatever it may be, and you've got somebody like Goggins, love him or hate him, and he's right. And it reminded me of a quote. Another upcoming guest, Nico. He's hypnotherapist, and we were talking, and over the past about 7 years, 8 years, I've been going through a therapy journey, and I've gone through CBT, I've gone through EMDR therapy, and it's changed my life completely from where I was, which wasn't, it wasn't me. I was broken down to nothing, and I've built myself back up the way that I want to be. Um, and it's only been this last probably 4 years where I've done self-administered psychedelic therapy, and I've given up alcohol, I've given up nicotine, I've given up caffeine, and it's one of those where, thinking about it, the life that you want, and this is very Goggins-esque, is the life that you want to have is only an undetermined series of decisions away.
Yeah, of
That is
course,
it.
100%. Yeah, exactly that.
Made
And again,
made again and again and again and again and again.
like David Goggins for me was like he made things not seem, yeah, it just made things not seem impossible. Do you know what I mean? Whereas we look at these mega impossible tasks, and it's just like, yeah, and now obviously I'm on that. Like I say, I'm completing 200-mile ultramarathons, and yeah, and all that stuff. So yeah,
So
so he give me hope. You know.
so is that why it was running? Is that why you latched onto the running element? It was because of Goggins, or
Yeah, so like I said, I was into all these motivational stuff. Like I said, I got into Christianity and all that. And then, like, I started to move a bit more and do more things. And I started to get the headache started subsiding. And yeah, so I started running so I started doing like loops around the park every day. And then my brother pulled out of Cardiff Half Marathon, and he basically said, "Look, if you want my place, you can do it." And I said, "Well, Cardiff Half Marathon is next weekend." And he was like, "Well, you got a week to train." So I was like, "Oh,
Uh,
okay."
oh,
So
nice.
so that's where it pretty much started. And because I hated that half marathon so much, I just wanted to master running. It was over. It was just the worst thing I've ever done.
I,
So
I must admit, coming from somebody that's done sport all his life, I hate running. I cannot, like, put me on a football pitch, put me on a hockey pitch, I will run for hours and hours and hours and hours. Put me on a road and tell me to run, I'd give up in 5 minutes. I just find it so I find it boring. I do, and don't get me wrong. Like, I've had this conversation with our mutual friend that introduced us. Shout out to Rich, because he's mad. I don't, and he started running for his mental health.
yeah,
And he absolutely, like, I follow him avidly because I think he's bonkers.
yeah,
But I just don't I don't see the enjoyment in it at all. I don't
yeah,
understand it. Um,
yeah,
but I mean, I suppose so. Obviously, you started the half marathon, and I'm presuming you finished the half marathon.
yeah. We got it done.
Um,
Great.
and then obviously it snowballs from there, and you do your first ultra. Was it 50 miles?
So yeah, so obviously we done the half, and then so yeah, February of 20. So the half was October 2020, and then February 2021 was when I done my first ultra. Yeah, so yeah, that was 43 miles that was. So
Right, and this is where it gets. This is why I compared you to Leonardo DiCaprio in The Revenant. Is the fact that you've just been through what, and quite rightly so, and you were nearly, probably a hair's breadth away from doing what a lot of people would do from that situation of traumatic brain injury and having to learn to walk properly again, and your sight, and becoming a different person, and trying to take your own life. And then you come from that and you complete this ultra marathon, and then 2 days later, we like, aside from that, that's amazing in itself. And if we ended the story there, that is unbelievable. But then 2 days after completing your first ultra marathon,
yeah,
you have a stroke.
yeah. So I was in my mate's garage, and yeah, I was talking to my mate, and the case started to feel like weak on my left side. So I sat in my vehicle that we were working on, and yeah, I just literally, I started losing my speech. I couldn't talk properly. I was dribbling, my face had dropped, and my mate looked at me and he just like, what's wrong with you? And I was just like, I was trying to talk to him back, and he just took my phone off me, and yeah, he rang the ambulance and said he's having a stroke. So,
And what I mean, I've had close personal experience with strokes, not myself, but a very close friend of mine had a severe stroke whilst he was driving as well, which was even worse. Luckily, nothing happened on that sense, in that sense. But he went down the route of sort of the oh woe is me and why has this happened to me and I think that sort of contributed to his deterioration of his health. And then on the other end of it, my granddad, who's now 93, had he had a TIA, which is in layman's terms a mini stroke, and fractured his hip and this that the other. He's had God knows how many health problems, and he's still kicking. And then he had three major strokes, and it was he's learned to speak again. He still gets confused and stuff, but I think through his perspective, it's almost ignorance, and he was in the Suez Canal zone in the RAF. He was a firefighter for 20 odd years, so he's tough as old boots. And it's like, oh well, crack on with it, and it's almost that mentality difference. But what I want to know and what I would like to ask, what's going through your mind when you're in the midst of having it? Do you know what's happening, or is it
I just literally didn't have a clue. To me, it was just like, I just wanted to get up and walk. I thought I was like depleted in sugar or something. So I kept asking my mate, pass me a donut, but obviously I couldn't speak very well. So it was just like, it was all coming out like, yeah, and we laugh about it now, but yeah, so it's when I was laying in the corridor of the hospital was probably the scariest bit, because when you're told you've had a stroke, um, obviously that's the scary bit. So yeah, I'm told I had a stroke, and now the scary bit.
it? Yeah, I mean, and at that point, for you especially, it must have been so. It's so easy for you at that point because of what you've already been through to think, oh, for fuck's sake, is this like you know? I, it must have been so easy and so delicate to not fall back into almost that depressive depressive state.
Yeah, well, like I say, it was difficult at the time as well, because there was obviously COVID had just kicked off as well, and so the hospitals are rammed. I'm lying on a bed in a corridor, and yeah, I was basically told, because my stroke had subsided, because they'd done tests and I had my feeling back and stuff. They basically said, look, we can't keep you in. You're gonna have to go. So yeah, I was just discharged, and yeah, I'm just like, okay, well, when you actually look at what happens after your first stroke, um, yeah, it says it's a warning sign for a second stroke.
Well, yeah, that's the thing. It must even now it must still be on your mind that it could rear its head.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I often think, could it happen again? But I just think, just if it happens, it happens.
True.
I just gotta keep doing what I'm doing. So like, I live a pretty decent sort of being life, apart from cake and coffee, but
Yeah, everything's okay with a cake.
yeah.
So,
So yeah,
like,
so obviously, yeah, I went through the stage. I did go through that fear of having another stroke, which is when I started to self-harm.
right.
So
And
yeah,
what was that psychologically at that stage? What obviously you've been through the ringer more than most people will ever experience at that point. when you're recovering from a stroke. What sort of mental state would you say you were in? Was it almost like, the way I can imagine it and the way I can sort of try and comprehend it and try and put myself into your position would be, fuck it, nothing really matters anymore. I've gone through this, I've gone through that, I've gone through everything that's tried. I've tried to end it all. It didn't happen, and then I've had a stroke, and fuck it, it doesn't really matter.
And this
Is
is the
is it
thing.
that?
So like I sort of achieved this huge sort of task, which was obviously running my first ultramarathon, which took 43 miles. And then to me, it was just like, right, okay, so I can't box anymore. I can't run anymore. So he was just like, what do we do? Do you know what I mean? And I was like in a bad depressive state still, and obviously going down this path of like wanting to self harm, and I had started self harming as well. But yeah, so I just booked a 50-mile ultramarathon then for July.
What,
So I
and
just
was it almost like a Hail Mary of like, if I die on the course, I die on the course?
it's pretty much like I say, I wouldn't want to think like that because that puts event organizers at risk.
Insurance premiums go through the roof.
Yeah, but it was just like, you know what, if something, and I've always said to people, if something happened to me, because I always get told that I should be resting, should be doing this, and I always say, you know, if I'd rather die trying than sitting down doing nothing.
But that's, yeah, it's admirable, that, I mean, and I'm very much, I think that's one of the things, like I mentioned, the psychedelic therapy over the past 3 years, the one of the biggest things for me, and the reason why I went down that route, is I had a really bad existential fear of death, and not necessarily death itself, but getting to death and not having achieved what I knew I could have achieved, or done what I wanted to do, or visited where I wanted to visit. And it was, I kind of know, so it'd be, say, 7, 8 o'clock at night, and the TV would be on, and we'd be sat down, and we'd just eaten tea, and the thought would creep in of like, well, what if you get to 70 and you haven't managed to, retire, and you're still working? And as soon as that thought would creep in, it'd be like, oh shit, I'm not sleeping now. And then the thought process of not sleeping had send my brain into overdrive, and it might be 2, 3 days before I get a proper sleep, which then ultimately impacts everything else. It impacts, being a father. It impacts you at work. It impacts your cognitive ability to take care of yourself. And since obviously doing the therapy, that fear of death has completely disappeared, to the point where I know that there is something beyond death for a fact, because I've seen it, and I have started living in that sort of same vein, and this podcast is proof of that. Is the fact that, if I didn't do this, and if I didn't get to speak to people like yourself and every other guest on there, I'd have regretted it when I was 70, 80, 90 years old. I would have been, I could have done that. Um,
Yeah.
and to live without regret, I think, is one of the, Goggins says it, doesn't it? It's one of the biggest motivators for me.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
And that must be, you've been you've been at death's door, what, 3, 4 times at that point. So it must be like, sort of shaking hands with an old friend, and sort of just knowing. I think it must make it easier knowing that you've been probably at a lower point than that.
Yeah,
Knowing
and
that,
that's the
well,
thing. It was just like I've always basically said, like I've been at that point of quit, whereas I want to tap out the light, and yeah, it's just that fear of, like you say, quitting, like really scares me now. It's like it's a fear of mine. So, and again, I basically said that I would never ever tap out.
Mm.
So so yeah, I'd rather fail at something than quit at something. So
It's one of the biggest lessons ever. I received that is, you can never ever fail at something if you never ever quit.
Mm.
Um, and I teach my daughter that a weekly basis in the fact that, if you quit, that's when you fail. If you don't quit, you can never fail. You just adapt and overcome every single time.
And this is where this is where I learned on one of my events that there was a difference between quitting and retiring. So, so
Yeah, it's a very subtle difference. It's
the,
just changing.
yeah. So there's a difference. So like if running an ultra, if getting an injury in an ultramarathon would jeopardize me running 6 months down the line, then obviously I would retire from a race because running is my medicine. And if I can't do it because of I'm being stupid,
Yeah.
then
Well,
I know something further down.
you've just recently decided to sort of take a bit of a break, haven't you? Is that
Yes.
in preparation?
Yeah. So not so much of a break, but yeah, I'm just going to focus on the task in hand, which is far bigger than what the events I had booked. So
Yeah. So when is, like, just a sort of sidestep from your life story, because it's not over yet. Surprisingly enough, for anybody that's listening, it hasn't ended at this point. What's the big challenge? Is it 870 miles next year?
yeah. So I'm attempting to run the fastest known time on Wales Coastal Park, which is 870 miles from Chester to Chepstow. So.
And how long are you perceiving? What is the
Well,
time?
so the record is 19 days and 5 hours, and I'm going to try and do it in 17 days. So,
And that's and the thing is, I look at that and think, yep, that's why I don't run, because it's it's just bonkers, but unbelievable, sort of achievement. And I can appreciate, especially with Rich and speaking with Rich and yourself now, I can understand, because I love going walking, hiking, at a normal person's pace. That's and me and my friends, and I think the most recent one we did was Helvellyn. And I take my daughter out. We did Scarfell Pike, and we learned. She learned so much, and just being out in nature and in the it's the wilderness to an extent, on your own without any sort of aim or pressure, and it's just you. I do very much understand the appeal of that. From a psychological and mental health aspect, and I'm presuming that's one of the biggest things from your point of view.
yeah, and it's like say with the bigger events as well. So obviously the 30s and the 40s, the 50s and stuff, they don't tend to go very dark in the events. But like recently, I've just done the Ring of Fire up in Angus, so it's 136 miles. And yeah, there was a storm as well. It was the yellow weather one storm in the night,
Oh,
and
they're the best ones.
yeah, so it was like so you literally put yourself in survival mode then. So and like I say, I go through a lot of suicidal thoughts and mental health stuff, and but then you're going through an event where you're trying to your thoughts switch to try and survive, and yeah, it's quite just yeah, it's incredible.
So where, from your perspective, because of your personal experience, and obviously you're a big mental health advocate, and so my missus works in charities, so and she does a lot of sort of homeless prevention, but in terms of like suicide prevention, and there is that sort of well-known stat by everybody that white males between the ages of 25 and 40 are the most prominent to commit suicide and end their life. Where do you think it comes from, that? Where, in your personal
Um,
experience, obviously it's a bit different for you, but obviously you spent a lot of time around it.
yeah, I just like I say, I just don't understand. Like, and that's the thing that I keep sort of trying to, because like I've lost my best mate to suicide, and literally breaks me every day knowing that he couldn't talk to me and I couldn't stop him. Um, but again, I still have this. I think I have this lack of self-worth, and like I say, I wake up in the morning. In the mornings, like the suicidal thoughts are the stronger, which is why I started doing like cold water therapy. I have cold showers. I go running in the mornings, or I go training in the mornings. So it's just like everything I do is usually around 6 o'clock.
Yeah, the cold water therapy. I mean, the if it, to anybody that does it, and it is kind of on the rise, and I think a lot of it sometimes is a bit altruistic, and people do it for clout. But when you do it, that I know from personal experience, that 5 to 15 minute battle, sometimes depending on the day, but the 5 to 15 minute battle inside your own head almost gets you out of your own head, and it stops you thinking about everything else.
Exactly that. It's a distraction.
Yeah,
And it distracts that. It takes that noise away, distracts that thought, and yeah, the next thing, and you just fill your body full of like incredible chemicals.
yeah. I
So
mean, it's a shit distraction. I don't like it. I never have. Uh, there must be something else. Why doesn't a warm shower release all the endorphins and oxytocin and serotonin into your system? Because fucking cold is horrible, but you do feel amazing when you get out. There was a study. I think it must have been. It would have been last year that was released that they likened the chemical effects, like you mentioned, of a cold water plunge to the effect of sort of a line of cocaine, but
yeah, yeah,
it lasts 8 hours rather
that
than
was longer. Yeah,
yeah. So anybody who's we'll get into it on a different episode. We need anybody who's a cocaine addict, just sod the powder and get into an ice bath. That's you get a better kick from it. So so in terms of that element, and I just don't. What would you say? Anybody that's thinking about it now, that's in that place, that maybe might have gone through something similar to you in terms of a stroke or traumatic brain injury or even self harm or anything along those lines, and are at that point where I was, knowing that shit, this mood can go lower, and that's where it's danger, and the sitting on the surface. What's your advice? What's your mantra,
um,
or what's your Goggins moment?
yeah. So what I always say is don't tap out. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean? But again, the other thing that I do say on a serious note is like you reach out and talk to somebody because there is somebody that cares and there is somebody that wants to listen and obviously help as well. So it doesn't matter how alone you feel. Do you know what I mean? There is that one person who wants you to stay. Do you know what I
yeah.
mean?
I think
So
I think from a man's perspective as well, it is difficult. Um, but I know from personal experience with one of my good friends, Ali, um, when you do reach out and you do sort of give that, uh, you show that little bit of vulnerability. Um, you very quickly find that there's it's almost like a tangible silent sigh in the air of relief, because the person that you're speaking to was probably feeling the exact same way as you were feeling, and you were the one that made the first move, and then they're like, oh god, yeah, I can talk about it now as well, thank you. And you'll
yeah,
find out that they probably offload a lot more than you do.
yeah, no, and again, I just think it's like if you can show somebody that they are allowed to be vulnerable in front of you, then that just like opens up a brand new door for them.
Mm,
Because yeah, just you become their person.
yeah.
So and again,
And
like there's one like I never like I always do like yeah mental health. So all my sort of social media is all around mental health and stuff, like my running stuff. It's never about me or my ego and stuff like that because I'm not that person. But like I do get messages of people saying, I mean, thank you so much. I really needed to read that today and stuff, which is why I keep doing it because it's never about the thousands of people. It's always about the one.
that's it. And this is it for the motivation from me is you know, if it stops something bad from happening, or if it helps one person do something amazing, or if it inspires a young person to follow what they've wanted to do, or pluck up the courage and just get out there, and these conversations that are generally had, ultimately, you and I both know, behind closed doors, and nobody's generally privy to. Um, to shed a light on them and put a spotlight on them that people can then refer to and think, oh well, if Carl did this and Carl did that and Carl went through more than what I'm going through, so if he's done that and he's gone, way more, then I can do this. And that sort of motivation, I know for a fact from personal experience. I read your story, and I messaged Rich who went, "Are you taking the piss?" Like, it's crazy, and like we touched before, like, it's not over. So subsequent to you having this stroke, and you then, did you complete your first 200 and 100 mile ultras?
Yeah,
Uh,
so yes, I done my 100-mile race first. But yeah, I completed that. I think I think I come top 20. Another place is Macca anyway, but obviously it's like my first 100, and I done okay. So it was just
yeah,
like,
well,
right,
that's
okay,
it.
yeah.
Just
Then
completing it is
obviously,
is good enough.
yeah. So I had a phone call then one day, and it was just like, um, yeah, our friend, and yeah, she said, I got a plan. I was like, okay, and she was just like, we booked you into Wild Oats 200, and I was like, oh, okay. So I was like, that's coming up soon. She was just like, yeah, you got 9 weeks to train for it. It's like, you serious? So I had 9 weeks to train for a 200-mile race. But it was for Soulmate, which is a local running shop. So it was raising money for a community trust fund, and yeah, so a community trust fund that they have in place. So yeah, so it meant the world to me to be running for, yeah.
And then you ended up in a car, a 60-mile-an-hour car crash that
Oh yes, that was in like
was
2021, I think.
that subsequent to your stroke or before your stroke?
No, so that was after my stroke. The year after, yeah. My stroke was 2020, and concussion. The car crash was 2021, yeah. So
And
that's where we are.
and it's not just like, a little bump. It's a 60-mile-an-hour car crash that they crashed into you at 60 miles an hour, and it tore your carotid artery.
Yeah, so I was stationary, so I was like, yeah, I was stopped at a junction, and yeah, the car behind didn't stop. Yeah, hit me 60 mile an hour. I assumed it was 60 mile an hour because it was 60 mile an hour road and his brakes failed. So yeah, he hit me like flat out. Um, but yeah, a couple of weeks later, unfortunately, the guy that crashed into me, he literally took his own life.
Oh wow.
So obviously the question was lingering about, did he try doing it when he crashed into me? Uh, but yeah, I ended up back in hospital, another concussion. Yeah, and artery
What's
damage
going through
again.
your head you must think at that point, like, not only have you been through the stroke, but obviously with the fact that this is a head injury, and and what you went through and the depths that you went to after your first, sort of concussion. um I I mean, the mental toughness and the mental resilience to sort of be sat talking to me now is phenomenal. But I don't know whether you can, but what goes through? Try and describe what goes through your head at that point where you're going into hospital again with another head injury and concussion.
But again, I only went into hospital because I took myself there. So it was like, no, I didn't have no ambulance at the scene. I got out of the vehicle and I was fine. So my van was like literally smashed to bits. But I did manage to get it back home as well because it had my tools in the back. So and then I went to hospital after that because I started getting like nauseous. I started getting sort of all the concussion symptoms and stuff. And yeah, I think it was like like I started getting like floaters in my eyes, like blurry eye and stuff, and yeah, and after some MRI scans and CT scans, they discovered that I had tear on the inside of my carotid artery in my neck. Because obviously, if it was on the outside, then it would have like bled
Well,
out.
yeah.
So the tear was on the inside of my carotid artery, and yeah, when my artery stretched in my neck from the impact, it it's left a bulge in my artery, so I've got an aneurysm in my artery in my neck as well. So, which is killing the optic nerve in my left eye because it's restricting the blood flow.
So yeah. Well, I know when I can only laugh because it's just so crazy. Such a crazy story in terms of the fact that I know the couple of people that I've spoken to and said, look, this is who is coming on the podcast, Carl Jones. This is his story. Each each one of them. Did you buy a lottery ticket after that? Because I would have been going straight to the lottery ticket machine to put it
But
on.
this is the thing. Like I don't. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to come across as being anything special or anything other than just like, yeah, I just want to help. And it's just like I just want people to. And again, like I tell my story purely just to help one person because
Yeah,
yeah, if one person can go through however adversity and turn it all around, and because like I say, I listen to Goggins' story. So it's like, I mean, I know like obviously people look for inspiration or for motivation, but again, everything can be consistency. But if you can get with that one person out the door to make them realize that, yeah, there is a powerful connection between movement and health and mental health,
yeah. I
then
mean,
yeah,
I 100%. Like I've heavily with starting this podcast and doing everything myself in terms of a lot of podcasts have bookers, they have editors, they have XYZ, and I'll be doing everything from start to finish. I've looked forward to Tuesdays and Wednesdays, which is when I go hockey training, because that for that 1 hour and a half, I think about nothing else other than a hockey stick and a ball. And it's literally that's the getting out of my own head. This is my rest, if that makes sense from a
yeah, well,
psychological aspect. And then it's almost back to work as it ends in terms of from a psychological aspect. And now physically tired, and that's the other thing with physical exertion and exercise and running and so on and so forth. I think a lot of the issues come. I've seen, and I'm pretty sure you've seen over the recent years, that there's been a massive sort of shift in mental health and a shift in being aware of mental health issues, and some people put it down to personal circumstances or societal issues, or even actual neurological issues. But for instance, sleep quality is one massive thing that I don't think people highlight enough. Um, people can live without food for 3-4 weeks. People can live without water for a week. People can live without shelter for years and years and years. But sleep will kill. Lack of sleep will kill you very, very, very quickly. Um, and people that are the sort of rise of the Instagram influencer of 5 a.m. club. If you're not up at 5 a.m., then you're a fucking failure, and you're not doing enough, and you're not doing this, and you're not, I guarantee any 90% of people saying that they're up at 5 a.m. to do this, don't get up at 5 a.m. They're bullshitting, they're lying, and they're just doing it for clout. And the problem is that lack of sleep will affect every single area of your life. If you exercise more, sleep will come very, very quickly. This episode is brought to you by Vanavasa Coffee. Since going caffeine free, I've realised how hard it is to find a genuinely good decaf coffee. Most of them taste flat, weak, or like they're just there to tick a box for the few of us that don't want or need that caffeine hit. But I still love coffee. The morning ritual, the warmth, the silence that comes with that first sip. And that's how I came across Vanavasa Coffee, a brand inspired by the wilderness, built around presence, purpose, and balance. Their coffees are grown all over the world and roasted right here in the UK. Each blend tells a story. I've partnered with Vanavasa Coffee because it's about more than caffeine. It's about connection and the ritual. Right now, they're inviting a small group to join before they launch. You can register your interest and get 15% off your first order by visiting cutthes.com/sponsors and clicking on Vanavasa Coffee. That's cutthes.com/sponsors and clicking on Vanavasa Coffee.
Yeah, of course. And like I'm like really super strict on sleep patterns, and and like if I don't sleep, I'm literally falling apart. So I like to try and get sort of 8 hours sleep, maybe a little bit more, but I am in bed by 8:30, 9 o'clock. Yeah, I don't watch TV, so I don't get distracted by TV. I don't watch TV and all that stuff. So yeah, I respect it. I'm in bed by I'm back in the gym at like 8, half past, yeah, and I'm in bed by 9. Yeah, well, that's true. And then I'm up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock, and got running. But yeah.
So what if in regards to sort of what do you see in the future for yourself then? Like, because obviously, like you mentioned, there's a difference between quitting and retiring.
Yeah.
And you know, I know my granddad played sort of badminton and he cycled quite regularly up until he was like in his late 80s. Smoked like a chimney, but was fit as a fiddle at the same time. Different generation. What's the sort of hope from your perspective? Is it just to help one person at a time and see how many we go and where you get to? Or is it that sense of self-care as well?
Yeah, well, obviously, like self-care is important because obviously if I wasn't looking after myself, I'd be a hypocrite. So yeah, I obviously want to still continue to be the best version of myself by challenging myself, which is why this FKT attempt is something personal to me. Um, and again, it's not for the attention or media coverage or anything other than to give somebody or give that one person a bit of hope. Because yeah, I've come from nothing, I haven't had a sporty upbringing, like I've said, I've struggled along the way, and yeah, I don't think I'm anything special. I don't think I'm a great runner, but I just think that, just keep showing up, and I think that's all you've got to do is
I
just keep
don't.
showing up.
I admire the fact that you keep on saying you're nothing special, and I kind of understand where you're coming from in that respect. There's, um, because ultimately, we're all made of the same cloth, and we're all sort of, just trying to sort of figure this thing called life out. But I think if stories like yours, they almost, in my opinion, they almost define what it means to have sort of that human spirit, if you know what I mean. And I don't mean that to sort of big you up and make you into sort of ultra marathon deity. But it's for anybody that's listening that's going through anything that's sort of detrimental to their mental health, whether that be big, small, regardless. For instance, this week, I brought my own TV. I brought my own TV this week by picking it up off the wall because I needed to switch it off and reset it, and it kind of derailed my day a little bit because I was pissed off at myself. Now, I'm aware that could ruin somebody's year to the point where they will carry on beating themselves up about it over and over and over and over again. But then I'm a big believer, and I've spoke about this previously on some of my social media posts. Perspective is massive. And sorry that it had to be you, Carl, but when I've had a problem or when I have a problem now, I will use you as a tool to apply perspective to that situation because it could be worse. Do you know what I mean though? And I don't mean that in a
Yeah,
negative
yeah,
sense. Um
yeah.
and
No, but it's like I think it was like the conversation we had the other day about the climbing wall. Um,
yes.
and like I said, I'm doing it because I literally am petrified of heights. So I've been given this opportunity to climb a wall, and I'm just like, yeah, it's not massive, but it's like the fact that to get back down, you've got to like leave go and just walk down the wall and trust the guy belaying you is yeah, that's like massive. And like yeah, it's awful.
Yeah, well like it yeah, and that sort of I know we were speaking about that and it was just like sort of the words that you mentioned, just get out and do it. Um and and it's very much sort of over, like I said, over these past 3 years, that's very much been a mantra of mine in terms of, you know, not that I had an issue with alcohol, but I used to have maybe a couple of cans of an evening to relax after work, and then it'd be, oh, we'll have 6 or 7 pints at a weekend, and then it'd be every time that I'd meet up with friends, it'd be like 4 or 5 pints, or let's go for a drink, and it just kind of creeps in as the normal thing. Um, and it's the same mentality of just get out and do it, but it's like, no, I don't want to drink. No, I don't want to drink. No, I don't want to drink alcohol. I'll have a non-alcoholic beer. I'll have a lemonade. I'll have this. I'll have that. I'm making that decision and again and again and again, and then realizing at that point, in fact, I could do this with every aspect of my life. Um, and if I just apply that and think, right, well, but I think is it what's his name, Peter Dinklage, the actor from Game of Thrones who played Tyrion Lannister. I don't know whether you know him. He was in Elf and what's he been in recently? Dexter. I no, well, no, you just said that, but I'm a big movie buff. But he said what he did a speech at one point, and it was a really it struck a chord with me in terms of the fact that he made a decision after leaving his last job that he wouldn't ever take another position if it wasn't as a paid actor, because that was what he wanted to be. So he could get offered whatever amount of money to do something, maybe accountancy or whatever, but he would not take another job if it wasn't a paid acting role. And I think that conviction that you've got in spades based on what you've done in your life path, um, needs highlighting. It's very much, people that whinge and moan and the victim mentality that sets in at every aspect of life. Have that conviction to turn it around and change that perspective and stick to it. And you'll get to where, look at yourself. You'll get to where you want to be.
Yeah, and like
Um,
so like you said earlier, like I changed so yeah, I changed my plan. So basically my plan was to run 6 100-mile events this year. Um and I've only run 4. So the next 2
it's just
was
not good enough, that, Carl. It's not good enough, that. It's not good
so
enough.
the next
Just
so the next 2 was in the next couple of months. So there'll be one this month and one next month. But yeah, I just chose to knock it all on the head and just focus on the 870 miles. So I just thought I keep showing up to events broken, like because I've done like 40 and 50 or 30-mile racing in between the hundreds I've done this year as well. Like I haven't been at my, and like I say, I don't show up to be competitive with anybody other than myself. But I know if I'm not doing my best, then I'm going to beat myself up. And I was
Mhm.
just like, find I was just dipping after all these events, and I was like, I was not getting nothing from them. I'm not a proud person. I like literally, and I was just like, yeah, putting myself in a bad place because I wasn't allowing the body to recover.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of at that stage at the minute, and it's strange. I think it's an age thing personally for myself. I because I'm 37 now, so and sort of changing careers and lifestyle at 37 is a. I think I went through a midlife crisis early, personally, and I think it's one of those where it's very easy to sort of fall into the trap, or I have fallen into the trap of at 37, I'm nearly 40, life is over, and it's especially with sport, which has been such a huge part of my life, is the fact that it's almost like that. I haven't got a long left. I've got 3 years left. I've got 3 years left until I'm 40. So I've got to play, and I'll play through injury, and I'll play through, the pain to make sure that I get the most out of this 3 years. When in reality, I actually play with players that are 50, 50 odd years old.
Yeah, and that's the thing. So you're putting a limit on yourself, and then obviously it's when you start putting a limit on yourself, that's when you start like, yeah, you then start the intake and serious thing. So you start like, if you've got no determination, you've got no, yeah, you've got nothing
Yeah, and
because you think you,
you put throughout life, you put these sort of invisible barriers in yourself without even realizing you're putting them in. And that applies not just to sport; it applies across everything. In terms of, I know I've had conversations where I've said to some, I'm um, launching a podcast, going to be a podcaster, blah 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 blah, and I get the what at your age, like, well, oh, there's loads of them, and if you let that sort of negativity creep in, um, yeah, you well, I wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't be speaking to yourself, and I wouldn't be chasing the dream of what I want to do. So yeah, I think it would be beneficial. How do you do that? How do you stop them? Do you recognize them sooner based on what you've been through? But them invisible barriers that you kind of put in
yeah, I
your
just
own
think
life.
I think we all our own worst critics, and we all got to put ourselves down. Like I say, if you're not a proud person, you just like look through like comparable fault, and that's what I do. I always look for faults. Like I say, I'm not one for making excuses because I keep showing up, but it's the fact of like if I keep showing up broken and I'm not going to achieve things as good as I think that I should be, then yeah, I gotta be sensible. Uh, so this is why like taking a step back and just doing a proper training program for the take 170 miles is very really important because again, like a friend said to me, like if you're gonna run these 100 mile runs in the next couple of months, then there's no point attempting the FKT because you're just gonna be broken doing it. So
You want to give your
yeah,
best self the best chance, yeah.
yeah, I want to go into as fast as possible. So yeah, I'm on the 70 miles because I'm gonna break. I'm gonna break within the first couple of days.
Yeah, well, I don't envy you. I don't envy you. And it'd be absolutely hot air and empty words if I said, you know what, I'll be I'll come and run a stage with you. It's not a chance. I probably wouldn't even be asked to drive it next to you if I was honest. Um, so I think covering what we've covered in terms of your life and your philosophy and what you've been through is amazing. And I think one of the last things that sort of I want to discuss is, and that's if you want to sort of go into it, and by all means tell me to piss off, but from a wider personal aspect in terms of your friends, your family, and your support network, how important throughout all these trials and tribulations that you've been through, how important have they been, and have they grown in importance after each sort of, in essence,
You
tragedy?
know, do you know the one thing that I appreciate most about the adversity that I've been through is the you figure people out. So my circle is actually a smaller, but
Yeah,
obviously that small circle now I know I can rely on every one of them. So every one of them people that I have in that circle is, is my phone call. And I think, that's special because we go through life thinking we got millions of friends. We on social media thinking we got millions of friends. And realistically, we can't. There's only a handful of people that we can actually sort of call when we need that. Well, we need the right answer.
Yeah. I must admit, I think that's very much an age thing as well, because I know especially over probably the last 7 years, my circle's gotten smaller and smaller and smaller to where it's maybe 2, 3 people. That's as big as it gets, and that's where I'm sort of happy and comfortable, because I think anybody only ever really needs 2 or 3 people that are, the ride or die sort of. They're there for you 100%, regardless of what you've done, or haven't done. Sometimes, in my case, and I suppose, taking motivation from your story or taking morals from your story, I think everybody should aspire to try and find them people. There's too much fakeness in the world.
Yeah.
There's too much that's done for clout. Um,
Yeah.
for instance, yeah, for instance, like, I've been friends with people for 16, 17 years, and then either naturally or through other means, you sort of just think this doesn't serve me anymore, and it's almost like a dysfunctional relationship that you've kind of woken up to and think, hang on a minute, this isn't right. It's no good for either of us. um and and ultimately, I think from a support aspect, to help people just get on in life, as well as to reach the maximum potential. I think that's probably one of the most important factors.
And yeah, like so like they say, so I'm a running coach as well now. So yeah, so I got a couple of clients, and again, like I'm proud. I'm so proud of what my clients achieve, but I'm never proud of what I achieve. It's like it's bonkers, and again, I just get this. I just love to see my clients like go from basically not running at all to achieving ultramarathons, marathons, half marathons, when it's just like, it blows my mind to give somebody that opportunity, which is yeah, and to give them the same feelings of what I get from running. Yeah, it's just like very inspiring.
I'll never become one of your clients, to be honest. Never, because I won't run for the bus. But it must be amazing that, like, and I think, when I first started the therapy journey, it was one of the biggest things was to find your tribe, find where you belong, and find sort of that almost family that's not blood related, that you can sort of go to. And the person for me in my life was always my nana, my mum's mum. And I know for a fact I could have gone to my nana at any point. I could have gone and said, I've just murdered 4 people. And she'd be like, right, I'll put the kettle on, come in. And there'd be no judgment. There'd be no underhanded tactics. She wouldn't have phoned the police when she went to make a brew. There would be, it's that almost that ride or die comfort zone. And ultimately, through sport, through running, through coaching, through therapy, trying to find that has been one of my sort of missions and personal missions. And I think more so through sport, you automatically find that, because of sort of the nature of it, is you're in it together. We're in, you go on these ultra marathon runs with, I think Rich's last one was like 170 participants. That's 170 people. They're in it together, and
Well, obviously
that
that's what I met. I met Richard at obviously the Wild Horse 200. So
yeah, and it's that automatic bond of sort of, you know, we're in this, we've done this together, and you kind, it's that almost that unspoken sort of brotherhood or sisterhood, for that matter. Yeah, I think sort of it's good to encourage anybody and everybody, not necessarily to go out running, but definitely to do some, you know, just get moving, go to the gym, fuck what anybody else thinks. You know, I love it when I see sort of either a big person or an unfit person in the gym, because I think fucking good on you. Like,
yeah,
that's
yeah, no,
awesome.
that's incredible. But,
It's one of my like small joys when I'm in the gym and I'm deadlifting and I see somebody come in that's sort of sweating like crazy on a treadmill, but they're a big guy or a big girl, and I just think fucking yes. Like, it's almost like a little fist pump moment.
yeah, yeah,
For myself, like, and then on the other hand, you've got Adonis in the corner looking into the mirror and whatnot, and you don't need the gym. You need a pie or a chip butty. You don't need the gym. And yeah, I think that sort of camaraderie, could go a long way to solving a lot of mental health issues for both men and women. Um, yeah, especially from like not just a a societal aspect of relationship, but psychologically and chemically, like we've already mentioned. It'll make you feel better. It'll make you look at yourself in a different way. I know I do. When I come from the gym, I think, oh, I actually look okay. I don't, that gut's gone, and then a couple of days later, you look in the mirror and think, I need to go to the gym again.
shouldn't have let that cake.
Yeah, yeah, 100%. So, rounding it off, in terms of um, moving forward at this point, what's what what would be your message to anybody right now that has either gone through anything that you've gone through, so that be a stroke, a debilitating injury, um, even from a psychological aspect of you know, self-harm, or even looking or plotting to take their own life. What's, aside from sort of reach out and speak to somebody, because I know from my personal experience, even the closest people to me, I felt like I couldn't. What's the thing that you would tell them to do for themselves? Or what's your message to give to them? You know, for me, and I'll bite the bullet on this one. For me, it would be sort of, for me, it would be reading really changed my life. Whatever, you know, over the past 12 months, I've read 70 odd books, because it's given me a scope or a little bit of a window view into other people's experiences and other people's lives. And I'm very much a magpie in that sense, where it's like, oh, I like that, I'll take that and I'll like play it in my life, but the rest of it you can keep. And it
And yeah,
helped.
like Christianity, what I turned to and what changed me, changed me as a person, changed everything, changed my mindset. It had a really big impact on my life. Um, but yeah, it's just like a lot of people struggle. Obviously, they blame themselves for the past, and it's just like, you know what? Like, let's say I can tell one person, so I mean, you know, your past, worth so much more. Then, but yeah, you have to go and find it as well, because you can't keep waking up. So I mean, being that person that you gotta find them before you want to.
It's powerful. Well, I appreciate you, brother. Thank you very, very much for coming on.
I appreciate everything that was, yeah, it's awesome talking to him.
Anything. Don't go through anything more. Just keep on running. Just keep
We'll
running.
try.
We don't
I'm
need
gonna
any
try
more.
for the minute.
Any socials or anything that you want to plug? What's your handle on Instagram?
So Instagram is elevate, yeah, underscore outer runner. And yeah, Carl Young on Facebook. But yeah, it's just yeah, that's pretty much.
Yeah, no worries. Well,
Yeah, that's it.
thank you very much, brother, and keep well. And I'll be following your journey with from my armchair.
Yeah, no, I appreciate everything of it. You know what I'm talking.
You too, brother. Thank you very much.
You take care. Have a good one. Take care, bud.
Bye.